Pero sobre todo gracias por su cercanía y su amabilidad. Y gracias también a Guillem por sumarte a esta charla desde el primer momento. Y bueno, la charla con Geert va a ser en inglés, que bueno, supongo que la mayoría no tendrá ningún problema si habéis pasado suficiente tiempo en internet como para estar allí. Pero bueno, si más tarde alguien quiere hacer alguna pregunta en español o cualquier cosa, intentaremos facilitar en todo lo que podamos. A ver, vale. Y bueno, pues vamos con la presentación de nuestro invitado, Geert. Un crítico de internet, activista y teórico de medios que viene tiempo reclamando redes digitales descentralizadas. Este es el espíritu detrás del Institute of Network Cultures, que fundó en 2004 y que dirige desde entonces. Afincado en Ámsterdam, el INC tiene como finalidad explorar, documentar y alimentar los nuevos medios a través de publicaciones, eventos y diálogos digitales. En Praxis tenemos la gran suerte de trabajar con INC y recibir muchos de sus libros publicados, que además podéis encontrar en PDFs o en su página web. Aparte de su labor editorial en el INC, Geert también ha escrito numerosos libros, entre los que se encuentran Redes misteriosas, Fibra oscura, Mi primera recesión, Cero comentarios, El abismo de las redes sociales. En castellano se ha publicado Fibra oscura, Rastreando la cultura crítica de Internet, Redes sin causa y Tristes por diseño, las redes sociales como ideología. Bueno, también El Internet de la extinción, Nuestro momento de la verdad inconveniente, que lo tenemos aquí, pero que también lo podéis encontrar en PDF en español. Y por último, Atascados en la plataforma, del que hoy hablaremos, escrito en 2022 y traducido al español por ediciones Bellaterra.
Thank you. Welcome to the Praxis bookstore, and thanks for Anna to organize this book presentation. Yeah. You are first?
No, please.
No? Okay. Good. This presentation is about 40 minutes or something like that. I will first explain a little bit about the center that we are running in Amsterdam since 2004. So this year it exists 21 years. It's a small center inside a polytech. So it's not a university but a polytech in Amsterdam. It's a large place with 50,000 students. And it's a small research center. So we are with 4 people, me and 3 other young people. And then there are a lot of interns and visiting researchers and people that come and just work there. So usually we are with quite many people, but actually we have only 2.9 jobs. So it's not, it's not a big place or anything. It's maybe the size of this room. That's that's the height. Also with books, by the way, of course. Okay. And I will show you let's go here. Okay. Something like that, right? Okay. So we are doing critical internet research, and in the beginning it was very much based on the idea that we should bring together people from all over the world on emerging topics and then have a critical approach. This already comes from the 1990s when I did something like that, but not inside school. Maybe you have heard about NetTime. NetTime still exists. It's a mailing list which discusses these topics. And it started, focusing, let's say, on YouTube. When YouTube started, so in 2006, we started a community called Video Vortex, which was looking at the politics and aesthetics of online video. This has been running for a really long time. But also smaller projects like Society of the Query that looked at the question of how search engines work, or Critical Point of View, which was about, let's say, to look critically at the premises of Wikipedia outside of the Wikipedia community, let's say. But also here you can see, when you go here, you can see all the research projects that we've done. It's not so many, because usually the idea was that when we start one, that they would really last, and some of them are still around. Some of these are, by the way, are also blogs. Here you see Video Vortex, and a more recent one, which is Money Lab, which is focusing on crypto and the simple question how artists and designers can make a living in the digital age, right? Because this problem really came up after the last economic crisis, and because everything on the internet is based that you give away everything for free, but how can people then make a living? And the only model that exists right now is the influencer model, which is based on advertisement, and money from clicks. But in fact, almost nobody can be influencer, right? There are very, very few. And this does not answer the question how designers, writers, or artists who work with digital media, how they can make a living, right? So this problem is unresolved, of course. But yeah, we started with the Money Lab around 2014, so that's now maybe 12 years ago or something like that. Yeah, and since then, of course, we looked very much into, crowdfunding. Is crowdfunding something? And more, of course, over the years, we focused on kind of a critical approach on crypto. But from an insider perspective, all these things are done, let's say, from inside the internet itself, not somehow from outside. So it's an inside critique. Now you can ask yourself, is that possible? Is it possible to do that? We have moved over the years more and more because of the funding, and we couldn't get funding for all these critical projects. Because nobody really wanted to work on alternatives, also not in Europe. Most clearly this was the case with a community called Unlike Us, which is started in 2011, the critique of social media and alternatives, right? And now 14 years later, you can maybe think a little bit more, okay, social media alternatives, there are more and more of them. But it took really almost a decade, and in that decade really nothing much happened. So this has been an issue. The internet developed more, but the alternatives, and especially in Europe, stagnated. In the meanwhile, what we've been doing, and Anna just showed you some here in the background, we have been focusing more and more on hybrid publications, right? And so here you can see all the series that we are doing. They are blogs, books like print books, but most of the books are digital and they are not in print. They are print on demand, or they are EPUB, for your phone, so that you can read those books when you're on the train or wherever you are. So we've been developing those books, working with a lot of authors from really all over the world, who kind of liked the idea that they could publish under Creative Commons, and so that they could buy the paper, but you could also freely download it. And funny enough, that is for a lot of people, especially young people, still a very attractive and alternative idea, even though it shouldn't. These ideas and practices are already, I don't know, 20, 30 years old or something like that. There's nothing new about them. The problem is the world has become more and more reactionary, conservative, and so the technologies have developed in very different ways, but not in the way of sharing and decentralized networks and so on and so on. I suppose you all know that. And this is our group, and I want to show a little video that explains how we work. It's called The Void, and it started inside our Institute of Network Cultures in 2022, and it is now a group that is kind of next to the group that makes books and publications. We are making videos, and also we integrate the videos in the publications, right? So for us it's normal that an article has a video in it, right? And that in fact maybe even that the video is more important than the article, right? So, okay.
The Institute of Network Culture is a research center based in Amsterdam. We have a long trajectory on experimental publishing, digital publishing, and that's a bit also the idea of expanded publishing. The idea of bringing both analog and digital, and try to come from the perspective of publishing, book publishing, and expand it to something that is not only in formats, not only a multimedia publication, a video, but also in forms, also in the way in which you create a publication itself. In some way, we kind of define this as a sort of publication. Yeah. This is a stream, right? It's an idea of there is an urgency, then the urgency is about both communicating something, but also being together. The Void is a practice-based research project concerned with unexplored affordances of online video, podcast, live stream, or any other hybrid media form. More specifically, we look at the practices and tactics that touch from data extracting distribution models. Whether academic blog posts, video essay, or digital artwork are concerned, in the black box of most video sharing platforms, users are given little to no insight as how the content they are consuming came to be and the resources being used. Nevertheless,
Platforms create accessibility by providing the space in which collaborative practice occurs. Yet, platforms favor a specific approach to video making, which is clean, manufactured, and advertisement-friendly. Against this backdrop, the Void focuses on the increasing presence of video production in research practices by providing resources to critically work with this mediatic landscape, as well as sharing and supporting research practices that center a critical engagement with media. The Void aims to expand the role of digital audiovisual production practices as a research methodology. In research publication, more often than not, media production, be it audiovisual or any other form of artistic practice that isn't writing, is still seen as somehow inferior, mere support material, a figure that accompanies the text, the main act, and that will fail to be considered as a form of research itself. For the Void, producing, hosting, distributing, and consuming media is not about illustrating previously existing research or knowledge, but about doing things. Working with media is actively doing research. In this sense, by combating the primacy of text, the Void aspires to create the means and tools for practitioners not represented in current publishing industries. During the past year, the Void developed experimental methods for open source audiovisual production, hosting, and publishing, focusing on how to quickly and sustainably design, record, edit, and publish video for research purposes. These methods are composed of several multimedia publications documenting and sharing internal practices. The main series of the Void is focused on using a pop-up TV studio as a research methodology. While usually the goal of this form of production is the digital documenting for its later distribution and consumption, this series also regards the recording studio and the act of shooting itself. Thus, the recording process becomes a space and time of encounter between artist, musician, academic, web developer, and activist. In this sense, the Void studio and the process of audiovisual production become an event, an arrangement for knowledge production and sharing enabled by the processes of shooting and deferred digital transmission. In the future, the Void aspires to be a project that is not only internal to the Institute of Network Culture Research, but also and foremost open to external collaboration with independent artists, researchers, and collectives around the world, either virtually or physically. The objective of this collaboration is to collectively create frameworks of production and archives for audiovisual practices as expanded publishing. In order to achieve this goal, the Void is now planning to open a PeerTube instance in its own server. The question of digital archiving brings up the material question of hosting. Audiovisual content has a substantial data and environmental footprint. For this reason, through the adoption of PeerTube, the Void doesn't regard itself as a content creator on YouTube alternative, but as a
Now, I want to show a little bit, where this actually comes from, because we've learned a lot and we collaborated very closely and still do with an initiative in Krakow in Poland, close to the border with Ukraine. It's called Ukraine TV. It's based inside the Art Academy there, and it is a solidarity project for and with Ukrainian artists who very often pass Krakow on the way out of the country or back into the country. Temporary studio today, tomorrow and Sunday from the Ukraine Art Book Fair, which happens this weekend in Kiev. And so they are there live. I'm not really sure. You must understand these are live streams, and they are meant to be the exact opposite, let's say, of the Instagram and TikTok video. Right? The average TikTok video now lasts 30 seconds. These webcastings, on average take place 4 hours. So we have all the time in the world, right? As they say, you know, they have all the money and no time, and we have all the time and no money, right? And so, this is very important to understand that the live stream is more like an ecological environment where you walk in and out or whatever, right? It's a very maybe if you are aware of Twitch. And the way Twitch, it is kind of also used, based a little bit on that, on the Twitch logic, when you play video games together, right? And you kind of get also in the sense of that kind of timeless environment where you go in and out, and, yeah. So this is happening here as well. I'm not really sure. Let's say, okay, so now you can see the time schedule here. I think it's for Sunday. Yeah, so this is a live stream coming from Kiev, from the book fair, but then also produced and mixed with other things in Krakow, right? And sometimes, yeah. So now another screen comes up. And this is what Ukraine TV coined as hybrid togetherness, right? So that we can be in solidarity with the artist in Ukraine together live on the screen, right? And it's using very simple chroma key green screen, which we call the Green Deal. You know, the Green Deal is where you where you all have the screen so that you can kind of come together on the screen from different places. And it's also maybe, and that's where it's connected to my book, it's very much also in response to the very boring graphic interface of Zoom, right? Remember COVID, when we all had to come together and you know, be in a Zoom environment. Zoom is the exact opposite, let's say, of what we propose. If we would have been in charge of Zoom in 2020, it would have looked like this, right? Because it's very, very simple to do. The chroma key is a very ancient technology. It's at least 30 years old. I don't even know how old it is. Maybe it's even older. Maybe it's even 50 years old, or I don't know exactly, right? So it's ancient technology, forgotten, but very, very powerful. Yeah, here we see the DJ in Kiev, and some input from Krakow probably. I would say we are waiting for a performance to happen, which will come up. Okay, so in the meanwhile, while this is playing, so every Friday night, by the way, around this time, we can join the live stream. So every week they are producing a new edition called Efir. So this is Efir, I think number 137 already. So already for 137 weeks they've been producing these live webcasts. Already starting in, I think, in the third or the fourth week after the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, that started on the 24th of February 2022, right? And so last February, a while ago, there was this commemoration of the third year of going into the fourth year of war. It's already going on that long. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit some other. Yeah, so this is the website of Ukraine TV itself, and here you can see a little bit, you know, the Streamlight Studio in Krakow, the manifesto, things like that. But that's not really the most important thing, because in fact the full archive is available on YouTube, but the live stream, for instance, used to happen in the beginning, especially on Facebook Live, but that was very problematic and they were kicked off Facebook Live all the time, so that didn't work anymore. Then Twitch is still used every now and then. YouTube Live is used, but since half a year we now finally have our own server. So and this is called PeerTube. And with PeerTube you can create your own live stream and on your own machine. So that is a very powerful, let's say, federated, decentralized alternative to the centralized and censored, you know, platforms. Yeah, let's see. I'm just gonna stop this for a little while, and for instance, you know, a few minutes we can just look, because the thing is there's a lot of performance art. This is Sofia. Sofia is one of the editors of, she's from Ukraine, and she's one of the coordinators of the performance part. And let me see, there's more, yeah, this, when you look at your, so this is a kind of in the studio in Krakow. There's quite a large space. Yeah, and here is another one, just to give you an idea, because the emphasis here is a lot on performance, dance, DJing, live music, but also people that are coming in from different parts of Ukraine. Also from artists, of course, who are on the front line. So sometimes they call with their phone, and then we make a live connection through phones. As you know, you can in principle make this kind of TV already with your smartphone, right? It's that simple, right? So it's not really high tech in that sense. Yeah. But also, you know, these are connections between artist groups and places in Lviv, in Odessa, and even, you know, we had connections with Kharkiv, which is the besieged city, you know, on the front line. With 1.5 million people living there, many of them artists and young people. So that's usually very, very special to do something like that. And yeah, you can see, you know, so the layered kind of effects are very important. Also for, let's say, yeah, to create this idea of hybrid togetherness, okay? Since half a year, we have also people joining from other cities and other countries. So we have been with the Ukrainian TV for quite a long time from Amsterdam, right? But Now we have a studio, a permanent studio in Budapest, you know, where they have their own issues, also inside the Art Academy, by the way, where they have to deal with Orban, but also in Vilnius, which is, you know, one of the Baltic states under immediate threat now of Russian invasion. And we even, in February, we had live connection with the pop-up studio in Tbilisi in Georgia, where there is a real, you know, tough tension happening between especially the young people who are fighting the Soviet establishment that wants to give Georgia back to Russia, right? So this is a really big tension, and yeah, it was very, very interesting to connect these places. Because yeah, people there, of course, they are in very, very big solidarity with people in Ukraine. Poland is playing an important role there because it's a country that's also, you know, on the front line. Okay, so that's what's going on at this level. And these are kind of, you know, some of the projects that we do in Amsterdam. I want to now maybe go to the second part, if you don't mind, and I will just read something from the book. So this. Atascados en la plataforma. And so this book is kind of a book that I produced during the COVID period, let's say, until 22. And so it has, for instance, the opening essay is important because this is the anatomy of the Zoom fatigue, right? What I just talked about. What is Zoom fatigue, right? Yeah, when you close off your webcam camera, right? When it's all too much and you get bored and you turn off the microphone and so on and so on. You remember Zoom fatigue, right? It's still sometimes people even today have to use Teams or Zoom, so you probably know what it means. In the book, there's also the Requiem for the Network, in which I describe, why the whole metaphor of the network is no longer really so powerful anymore, and why it has been replaced by the platform. The centralized platform. So the decentralized network has been replaced by the centralized platform. It's a kind of a basic idea, but it's an idea also with a lot of implications, let's say. I write here also about our efforts of Money Lab, and maybe you remember in that period there was the big speculative bubble about the NFTs and this kind of crypto art thing. So this is also what I'm describing here. I would like to read a little part, just to give you an idea about the theory or the poetry of it all. For me, the poetry is very very important. So the work that I do has a kind of a critical and activist side, but it has also kind of a theory and a poetic side to it. And for that, we're just gonna consume some eye candy. Let me see. Yeah. All right. There we go. And so these are memes that I'm just making, you know, for general entertainment, but it's also just to watch something. All right. Let's dive into social media wariness, the cause of our tired eyes. What are the techniques of resignation that we are exposed to? The blissful ignorance after browsing an entire ecosystem of narratives is not surprising. Culture is a pendulum, and the pendulum is swaying. The organized optimism, hard-coded in online advertisements and other forms of algorithmic advice, turned out to be merely producing anxiety. As Caroline Coles-Richard stated, I quote, "What can't be cured must be endured. The suffering, sorrow, and misery is getting tagged and filtered by your own self-censorship. We've been captured and feel frozen. What we receive is the anger and anxiety of the online other. The growing imbalance in the distribution of digital enchantment is neither causing a revolution, nor does it fade out. It seems we are trapped. During the lockdown misère of the COVID years, we've literally been stuck on the platform. What happens when your home office starts to feel like a call center and you're too tired to close down Facebook? How to get rid of your phone? Wrong answers only. We wanted to use the pandemic to reset and move on. We failed. The comfort of the same old proved too strong. Instead of a radical techno-imagination focused on rolling out alternatives, we got distracted by fake news, cancel culture, and cyber warfare. Condemned to doom scrolling, we suffered through a never-ending barrage of cringy memes, bizarre conspiracy theories, and pandemic statistics, including the inevitable flame wars surrounding them. Random is fun. Once we're locked in, the path to infinity has been blocked. Instead, we're caught in a Truman Show-like repetition of perpetual now, toiling around in the micro mess of online others that try to do their best, masking their failures and despair like everyone else. The Italian theorist Franco Berardi observes the mental state of today's students. I quote, "I see them from my window, lonely, watching the screens of their smartphones, nervously rushing to classes, sadly going back to the expensive rooms that their families are renting for them. I feel their gloom. I feel the aggressiveness latent in their depression." In the social media era, the Oblomov position is not an option, particularly for those that cannot economically afford to get stuck in the abyss. The design is elegantly forcing to engage, make choices, click, agree, and respond. If only we were capable of taking action and making real decisions. We experience the sadness of online existentialism minus the absurdity. If only interpassivity was ever implemented in code, we would indulge in a permanent state of indolent apathy. Instead, there is nothing passive about human-machine interaction. We, the streaming egos, scroll and swipe, obsessed with self-creation. Facebook and Instagram, the sociological constants of our time, equal the unbearable lightness of nothing. Surrounded by this massive bubble of light matter, we literally see no alternative options. No multiverses for you. There, jailed in the digital monad, you feel free to dream about as many worlds as you like. Being on social, the Zen status of detachment is an ontological impossibility. We're never really lurking. Our presence is always noted, and we can therefore never truly enjoy the secretive voyeur status. Interaction is our tragic existence. Instead, we're constantly asked to upgrade, fill in forms, and rank our taxi drivers. You're enraged, feel engaged, but still retreat to your safe rabbit hole. When you're feeling tired and nothing seems helpful, you've reached the end of the downward spiral. You ignore the signals and will pay dearly, but for now, nothing matters much. What happens when your social graph falls flat and you have nothing to talk about? You forget to like and follow and no longer respond to texts. The network around you collapses, but you feel incapable to act. Is this the joy of missing out? The epic shit of others no longer impresses. The perfectionism has killed you, and now you are face to face with an empty bucket list. Ducking tired, bored with Reddit, TikTok, Insta, and nowhere else to go, it's damn sure you've lost interest in everything you were once passionate about. At this point, we have arrived at the stage the late French philosopher Bernard Stiegler characterized as symbolic misery. Driven by cognitive downgrading, this is a condition that, according to Bernard Stiegler, can be traced back to the launch of the World Wide Web in 1991. This condition led to what he calls a new stage of proletarization, which he also described as an era of symbolic stupidity due to automatic decision making. The resulting stupor is caused by a series of technological shocks brought on by the four GAFA horsemen of the apocalypse. Shocks aiming to disintegrate the societies that emerged from the Enlightenment after World War II. The result, as he calls it, is internet blues, a form of disenchantment suffered by those who believed in the promises of the digital era, as Stiegler writes. So I'm not, as I already tried to explain to you with loneliness, we can say, okay, this is a much larger phenomenon. It has to do, you know, with the disappearance of the village. We no longer live in a village. We live in a, you know, an urban place. More than half of humankind is actually living in highly densely urban environments. So the idea of the village, you know, but of course there is the tribe, the family is falling apart, and so on, right? These are sociological, you know, the kind of ways of looking at it. And already this has been done, you know, earliest already in the 1950s, right? With the Lonely Crowd and other works that are important there. But we have to understand that because this is a media age and driven by technologies, that technologies are playing a very important part of this. Okay, so this is important for me because we also have to understand that alternatives alone, if they're not really responding to the conditions of people, and especially young people, they are just empty gestures. And unfortunately, yes, I come from a lot of the social movement, artistic, you know, communities that have been proposing and further developing a lot of the alternatives over the years and decades. And I came especially around 2016 was, I think, a very important year for me. That's the year of Brexit and the election of Trump and really the arrival of right-wing populism throughout Europe, right? So this is already going on for quite some time. That yeah, that it is important to start to look at causes and not only propose alternatives. Yeah. So yeah.
In regards to this, like, speculation sort of bubble that you're saying is like suppressing reality, or that is very distant to reality. And so you're saying it's like negating some aspects of reality.
Yeah, to understand, for instance, the real existing, let's say, addictive sides to the social media is important, because if you want to propose an alternative but you completely ignore that, then it's immediately running out of steam and nobody will understand you. So we need to address that much larger and have maybe alternatives ready. And of course now in 2025, yeah, we're approaching that situation, you know. So
yes, at some point in the book, I think you draw a very like a scenario where if social media were to fall apart, all this bubble of desire would just explode into something totally revolutionary because of the whole addiction that social media has created. If it were to disappear from day to night, it would just sort of explode.
yeah, but you could also say that this is just a desire, a dream. And that
yes,
the dream, the desire to have this doomsday, you know, is in itself a problem. Is in itself because the doomsday motive, let's say, is you know, is repeating itself. So we are on kind of a repeat cycle. tomorrow we have another doomsday, right? Another clash, another flood.
Maybe better doomsday than Monday.
Yeah, better doomsday than Monday. Yeah, it's like that.
About the brain rot concept, that it's just happening. I think it's a very like nowadays.
Yeah.
Like now happening, we know
Yeah,
this all this AI content,
AI
like
slop.
thing.
The AI slop is causing brain rot, right?
Yeah.
So this is and these are two concepts that are very dominant today. Yeah, that's true. I personally would say it's not causing brain rot so much. I'm a bit cautious to say that because I think what it does more is that it it's numbing, but it's also let's say we take something in order to survive the mess we find ourselves in, and so this is why. In the new book, I'm looking more at those coping mechanisms. So I see brain rot as a metaphor for coping. Mm-hmm. Maybe together with Catherine Malabou, who used to work together with Bernard Stiegler. She's someone who emphasizes from the neuroscience much more like the ability for the brain to recover. Actually, she says the brain is an organ. We should talk more to the brain, our brain, right? And we should understand that the brain has a so-called neuroplasticity, right? And so that's why from a neuroplasticity approach, the brain rot is that is true, but we have to then also emphasize that the brain can recover and can be reactivated again. Yeah.
But you mean if you stop looking at all this stuff?
If you stop, if you go somewhere else, if you do something else, of course. If you just continue, then obviously.
But maybe you could talk about that. How possible is it to, disconnect? Or what?
Yeah, I think definitely it's possible. First, in that phase, I do not believe in what I called already 20, 30 years ago European offline romanticism, which is kind of a really German movement. The idea that if you go to the forest, I don't know if you have lots of forests left here in Spain, if you can go to the forest, but but if you can go to the forest, you kind of recover and all this, right? Yeah, and then you can go back and then you can cope with it more. I don't believe in that strategy. I believe in a radical redesign. Namely, and the basic idea there is that we have to go back to the idea that communication is a tool. And that with tools like a hammer, you use the hammer, right? You have it there, it's lying there, right? The hammer is there, you know that. And once you need it, you take it and you use it and then you put it back. Yeah? But, yeah. And are we using the hammer the whole time for everything we do in the kitchen? We use the hammer the whole day, At night we go to bed with the hammer? No, we don't, right? When we use the hammer and we know it's there, we put it back. Now, I also know that it's possible for, communication tools to design them in such a way. They shouldn't be designed in a way that after 2 minutes we haven't used it, we almost feel like, we have to look again, because we have to look how the hammer is doing. I mean that's So it is very good to because I'm not anti-communication. I'm not anti-media. I'm a media activist, and I strongly believe that for certain campaigns and also for our communication between the example I just gave with the coordination inside and outside Ukraine. These are very, very useful tools for people that need them in certain circumstances. But that's an entirely different logic from the logic of social media platforms. And especially if you look at TikTok. I don't know, I mean TikTok is at the moment the most extreme one. I don't know, are there some people here on TikTok? So you probably know that. Yeah.
I quit.
Huh?
I quit.
You quit.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's So, and when was that? How long ago was that?
I've never been a user, like frequent user, but I use it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
And it was too much.
3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine, but
I use it at some point, as you said, like a hammer, like for looking for something specific, and you can.
Yeah, but most, especially young people, they are not able to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.